value proposition for this epoxy anhydride chemistry? I mean, it's pretty straightforward in terms of the standard pitch is that you get retention of certain physical, mechanical, electrical properties at higher temperatures for sustainable periods of time. I mean, that's a standard. That's the standard mantra behind it. So let's get into a little bit. Jeff, let me ask you. I mean, in terms of let's talk about electrical applications, which is kind of the mainstay. What can you offer?
Well, I mean, despite the fact that it's old technology, they're finding newer uses, more and more uses in new technology, smartphones, under hood, places where temperatures are being pushed higher and higher. Electrical insulating properties has to be maintained at temperatures that is much higher than these systems have ever seen before.
Would you say that the early stuff, the early applications, you know, varnishes and enamels and so on, potting compounds, is that really where all the learning took place?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
and so they built on that to improve the properties and drive performance upward, and why they're still able to be used in today's technology.
So from a pure property standpoint, I mean, Vinay, we were talking before about like pipe coatings, for example, corrosion resistance and things like that. Can you speak to that?
So, you know, to add to Jeff's comments about the electric insulation capabilities and retention of properties and those specific properties at high temperature, all of it comes down to a high cross-link density that these epoxy anhydride systems get to when they are cured. And that high density of cross-linking and the chemical strength of those linkages is what gives these systems the wonderful properties and resistance to temperature and all these excessive environments.
And it's where BTDA seems to come to the forefront because of the fact of being tetrafunctional as opposed to difunctional or monofunctional as a curative. As Vinay said, your extent of cross-linking becomes that much greater without imparting negative properties to the finished product.
But that's the thing. I mean, we're talking about cross-link density, heat resistance, and so on. So we also have to establish like how much is too much, because now we're going into a zone maybe where we've got embrittlement and rigidity, and you've got too much, and maybe somebody doesn't need that much and needs to dial it back a bit.
Yeah. Well, that's where the art of formulation comes from, an experienced chemist and you know people who can guide newer chemists or experienced chemists to begin.
We have been talking about the epoxy, but we have not necessarily talked about the functionality of the epoxy. Right. Traditionally, one would go to a multifunctional epoxy to get that higher TG, etc.
Right, and now you're doing it.
Now you're doing it through the curative using the BTDA with a more commonly utilized difunctional epoxy.
Yeah. Exactly. So I mean, from a property standpoint, it's not a be-all, do-all, but I mean, there's certain things where it clearly shines in terms of providing high temperature resistance, good retention of properties, even in adverse conditions for longer periods of time where other systems would fail.